Hi gang, Rob here. It is the afternoon of 13 March 2017. Got a knife review for you guys today, one I've been looking forward to for a couple of months. This is the obligatory Kephart design from Lon Humphrey Custom Knives. Why do I say obligatory? Well, you guys know, if you're fixed blade aficionados of any stature whatsoever, that the Kephart Woods knife, designed by renowned outdoorsman and naturalist Horace Kephart, oh gosh, 100 years ago or so, is one of the most famous patterns of fixed blade knife in existence. You know, right up there with the Randall Model 1, I would say, or the Bob Loveless original designs. And the Kephart is a much loved and world famous bushcraft knife. In its original design, the Kephart, well, it was it was recommended by Mr. Kephart to have a blade between 4 and 5 inches in length, to be sort of a blunt spear point, and of relatively thin stock, let's say less than 100 thousandths. It was to be designed for all manner of bushcraft. Splitting, precision cross-cutting, feather sticking, making tent stakes, poles, shelter craft, pretty much anything you need to do with wood and a knife while outdoors, the Kephart was designed to do. It has been interpreted and made by many, many, many makers since then, and these actually are Lon Humphrey's cracks at the Kephart. Comes in this corrugated cardboard box with identification on one end. These are both green canvas micarta. This particular box houses the Scandi grind version, which I think is a rather interesting choice in a Kephart. And then the other box houses the normal saber ground, or almost full flat ground, with the secondary bevel version. The knives come in a pouch style reversible sheath, so the sheath is symmetrical, can be carried either left or right handed. Nice vertical belt loop and a fire steel loop. I kind of like this sheath, and Lon uses it a lot. It is embossed with his maker's mark and logo. I like it because I'm a lefty and I don't have to call and get a left-handed sheath. Pretty cool. Nicely tooled. And a nice, just a really, really well-made sheath. Let's take a look at the knives, shall we? Pretty faithful to the Kephart design, except in a couple areas. Let's look at the more prevalent standard grind first. You'll notice the face of this blade is it's a little messed up. That's because it is a beautiful sunny day in northeast Indiana, and I took these out to the park, a local park called Metea County Park, and ran them through some wood. So we'll have a little footage of that as we go along here. But so we've got a 4 9/16 blade with a proper Kephart tip, and a Kephart handle will normally have an integral bottom side guard, and this is a little beefier than I'm used to seeing. For a knife that's normally held in a hammer grip or a draw cut grip, it's just a little wide, front to back, more so than I'm used to seeing anyway. Not that it was uncomfortable or got in the way at all. The handle is 4 9/16 inches in length. The blade stock, and here is one departure from standard Kephart thinking. I think this stock length before the brute de forge element is put into these knives is probably 3/16. I measured at about 181 to 184 thousandths with my calipers, but I'm on a pretty rough surface, so I think it's 3/16 stock. Handle is assembled with epoxy Corby bolts and then ground and polished flush, and either a stainless or aluminum lanyard tube, can't really tell which. One thing I forgot to measure is the thickness of the handle, and it is quite stocky, I gotta say. Let's see. Back here at the butt, which appears to be its widest point, it's like an inch, 980 thousandths. And then up here by the front of the handle, about 830. So pretty fat, pretty chunky little thing. And if we sort of take a look at the butt end of the knife, you can see it's quite round. Not really shoulders to speak of. There are some up in this area, but one of my concerns just, before I went out into the woods and started using these knives was, is the handle too round? Is it going to turn in my hand? We'll kind of take a look at the tape and determine that, but not my favorite feature on the knife. It is extremely well made. By the way, guys, blade steel on these is CPM 3V, and I know that this was because I talk with Lon, communicate with him a little bit, and I follow him on Facebook and the normal social media platforms, and I know that Lon sort of feels like a slave to this brute de forge pattern. It is his thing, and his customers, his fans, like his knives in brute de forge. And when he wanted to make a Kephart, he wanted to do it in 3V. You guys know that 3V is crucible powdered metallurgy steel, and it comes in billets, and it's really not a steel that needs to be or likes to be forged after it's produced. It's designed to be a stock removal steel. But Lon Humphrey fans, they want them some brute de forged finishing, and brute de forged finishing they got. Not easy to do. I think you can heat this up till it about melts, and it still really does not respond to forging, to hammering and forming. Difficult stuff. Not easy to grind, not easy to machine, not easy to forge. It's very tough. Even at elevated temperatures, it's very tough stuff. But this Kephart really, really shows it off, doesn't it? Take a look at the tips here. This, of course, is the Kephart version. A super stout tip. Notice that bevel only about a 1/4 inch wide at the tip. And then we take a look at the conventional grind. A little bit slimmer, but still super robust at the tip. Let's kind of do a flyover. And guys, I haven't cleaned these yet, but just take a look at Lon's work on the polishing. Did a nice job. Butts are ground nice and square. Finished just about as nicely on the underside of the knife as on the spine, which get going, Lon. That's been a little sporadic for him in previous models. Just nice work. Take a look at the plunge grind area. Just well done. to see. Well, you know what? Before we do this, let's go out in the woods, and you guys can kind of take a look at the testing I did today. I kind of expected in wood, the Kephart to outperform the conventional flat grind with a secondary bevel, because just, in my preliminary examination, this knife felt like it was pretty chunky behind that secondary bevel, and I didn't expect it to perform as well as the Kephart in wood. You're going to see, though, there was, in most of the forms of cutting, it was pretty hard to tell, at least from a viewer's standpoint, which one cut better. Now, I'm the one who had the knives in my hand, and I tried to be as descriptive as I could in this upcoming footage about what I was feeling. But the difference in split batoning, in feather sticking, notching, the Kephart definitely came out on top. But not by a lot. And then when I did some cross-cut batoning, well, the results kind of surprised me. I hope the video is clear. So take a look at that, and then we'll come back to the bench here. We'll clean them up and see what kind of an edge they have after a full day's work. So here you go, guys. Well, guys, today we're out at Matea Park in the woods, and we're going to do a little testing of two versions of the Lon Humphrey forged 3V Kephart in his brute de forge style. Lon sent me two of these knives. The one on my left is a more conventional Lon Humphrey grind, flat ground from about 2/3 to 3/4 of its blade height. The one on the right here is full stock thickness down to about 3/8 from the edge, and then it is dead Scandi ground. Frankly, I'm not a Scandi guy, but I like this knife a lot, just in how it looks with that brute de forge finish on the flats, and also as I'm looking at the geometry, I think it might excel in woodwork over this knife. Well, let me get some stuff arranged here and get started hacking up some wood. So that's the Scandi. And here's the flat ground. Hard to say which one I prefer. Interesting. I don't know. Let's try some feather sticking. So here's the flat. Seems to want to bite just a little deep. Try the Scandi. More controllable. I don't know which one I like better. You guys know I'm not Joe Bushcraft, but one thing I really wanted to be able to discern today was these handles, which seem to be a little round. I was concerned that they would want to turn in my hand. Frankly, they do a little. Let me kind of go ungloved here a little bit. Get a little better feel for that. Yeah, I don't feel like I'm in super control of that handle. Just super easy with that Scandi ground blade. Not quite so easy to control with this one. But doable. Try a little drilling. So this would be like if we were making a divot for a bow drill. Scandi works real well for that. Yeah, let's see. See about the flat grind. . not as well. I can tell already. There we go. There's a little better piece of grain. Actually pretty good. I will say that my initial sort of suspicions about the handle seem to be bearing out there. It's a little rounder than I would like it to be. It does seem to want to turn in my hand a little, although hot spots and fatigue don't seem to be a problem at all. Let's try a little notching like we would do for a tent stake. Definitely the Scandi is better than the V-grind for that kind of application. Much more controllable, like a chisel. In making my ply cuts and in cutting off, just it works better. The V-ground blade or the flat ground and then secondary bevel knife just seems to be a little fat behind the edge for this kind of work in wood. This may get new life as a convex grind. We'll see. Well, let's do a little more cross-cut batoning before we head out. These knives are too short for choppers. Just going 90 degrees through with the flat ground blade. Here's the Scandi, same cut. Baton fell apart. Shockingly, not as good. I'm kind of surprised by that. Let me come in close and I'll show you this. Look at the way that grain has bent. Just won't push it. Whereas the flat ground blades seemed to do just a little better. So both fairly equal split batoning. I would say the Scandi blade definitely better for feather sticks and notching. About the same for drilling. Cross-cut batoning, I was kind of surprised. The flat ground and secondary bevel blade did a little better. Interesting, I think. I got most of what I expected to see with these two knives and a couple surprises. As I thought, both of them split baton quite well for short-ish blades. We're about 4.5 inches. Plenty of spine thickness. The Scandi ground blade clearly excelled in feather sticking and notching, but about a tie in drilling. Cross-cut batoning like you would use to cut wood to length if you had a single blade system and no saw. I was rather surprised. The saber ground or almost full flat ground blade that's kind of thick behind the edge with a wide secondary bevel actually did better than the Scandi ground blade. I don't know if it did a better job of shearing and pushing material out of the way, but it just did better. Kind of surprised by that. Well, I'm going to get them cleaned up, meet you guys back at the bench, and we'll see if they got any edge left after a little woodworking. Talk to you soon.
Okay. One thing that's very, very appealing about these knives, guys, is that, well, you know, the blade is designed to be a workhorse. You know, it's not designed to have perfect satin grinds. It's not designed to be beautiful. It's designed to be taken out in the woods, thumped on, have a little WD sprayed on and wiped off with a paper towel and put away. And you just let them get old. You guys know I love my Bark River knives, but here's the reality of this situation. You know, if I'm going to be out in a harsh environment for an extended period of time, and I might not be able to maintain my knife very well, and I'm concerned about, you know, what I'm doing with it and how it's going to affect its appearance later, I'm probably going to take one of these Lon Humphrey Kepharts out in the woods before I'm going to take, you know, my $300 Desert Ironwood Burl Springbok. So, not that these knives are cheaper or even much less expensive, but they're just designed to wear well under hard use, if that makes any sense. Well, let's take a look. Cleaned up and wiped down after a pretty good work day in the woods. Let's see if they got an edge. And this is, I don't know, it's not Natchez Shooter Supply catalog paper. It's Smoky Mountain Knife Works catalog paper. Let's just see. It's a little glossier, but still pretty limp. You know, this knife, this is the conventional grind, and it's fat, and it's a little catchy, but it's still sharp. I'm not going to really complain about that. I mean, it's catchy. You really have to be careful going through the paper. You got to maintain a consistent angle because it's fat and it wants to grab stuff. Now here's the Scandi. Wow. Again, catchy, but guys, those knives are sharp. For woods blades, they're really sharp. I would say Lon has done a very, very, very good job heat treating his 3V. Chippiness, there's really none. I mean, that's those knives were hammered through wood all day, and the edge is still really, really good. So bravo, Lon Humphrey, and your heat treat, my friend. So overall conclusions about these. You know, it's not a faithful Kephart, and some of the departures from the Kephart design I'd rather see closer to the original, mostly the thickness of the blade. You know, I think 1/8 inch should be plenty, especially using a steel that's tough. And correspondingly, the handles could be a little narrower left to right. I think the top to bottom dimension's about perfect. You know, a little narrower left to right, and a little flatter sided to give me some shoulders. And I still would like them radiused for comfort. And by the way, although the knives do tend to turn a little bit, so the feather sticking control isn't as good as we possibly like, no fatigue. I mean, no fatigue. Even in the extra force you have to exert to keep the knife from turning, still, because the corners are so well radiused, no hand fatigue. So just a little thinner, more squarish would be good, and a little thinner stock thickness, and these knives would be really, really excellent Kepharts. So, hey, by the way, were you guys surprised at the cross-cut batoning performance difference? I was. Not so much in taking chips at an angle, but taking that piece of kindling and going straight through it at a 90. I was amazed how much better that conventional grind did than the Scandi. But here's what we're going to do. I'm not sure what's going to happen to the Scandi grind knife. I have a feeling this one might get a new home. I'm not quite sure how. Stay tuned. I got some things cooking in my mind. And this knife, I believe, because I think there's a little variation in thickness behind the edge going on here anyway. Yeah, I think you can really see it on this side. Look at the width of the bevel, how it sort of starts thin back here and then has a big wide spot and then it gets thin again. I would reprofile this and sharpen it anyway, but I think this knife, just my opinion, guys, and it's just me because I'm weird maybe, but I love my convex grinds on fixed blades. I have a feeling this might have to visit the belt grinder in the TheApostleP knife shop out in the garage and be transformed into a beautiful appleseed profile. I think that's what I'm going to do. Because I gotta. But, Lon does what Lon does, and Lon can put on a pretty fantastic edge in a short amount of time on power tools. And Lord knows he can forge a blade. I'm really impressed with how well this apex is preserved after a day of hard work in the woods on a raw factory edge that I did not touch up beforehand. So my hat is off to you, Mr. Humphrey. Apparently, Area 51 can crank out some pretty sweet 3V blades. These, I believe, guys, are still in stock at retailers who carry Lon Humphrey custom knives. I know Knives Ship Free does. I think DLT Trading does. And I believe CollectorKnives.net also should have some of these in stock as of the airing of this video. In a variety of handle styles, and I think in both grinds. So, if you're into this sort of thing, and it's a good thing to be into, you might just love these. So check them out. And that is all for this one, my friends. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the Word and my Pero Kepharts are sharp.